Hey, what's going on, guys? We're back with another Worlds 2023 draft analysis featuring BLG and Fnatic. Both of these teams, as of the timing here, are in the 1-1 stage of the Swiss stage, and basically, whatever outcome comes out of this, both teams are going to end up playing best of threes from here on out. So, pretty high stakes, differentiating whether the best of three is about, making it out to the knockout stage or just fighting for your life in the lower bracket, which is, a little bit scary, of course. So, starting with the opening bans, let's take a look at what BLG has in store. They open up with the Nazir ban, which is very specific and not really, I would consider it to be like super normal. It's more so to probably prepare for the Orianna B1, which is the most common answer. I would say that in Syndra in order to counter. So BLG is pretty much hedging against this Orianna B1. They're preparing for it in a sense. They're supplementing this with the Renekton ban and the Kalista bans. It's basically giving them as free of the B1 as possible, and the remaining two bans are to prevent this from being punished, right? Fnatic most likely caught onto this after their next set of couple of bans, and they just kind of responded in kind. They're letting it happen, and the other ban to consider is the Xayah ban, in which case teams are now opting to just get away from that chain of like either having one team have both of them or splitting them across both teams. Like some teams just don't really like the way the game is flowing with that, so they're just evolving this into a straight Xayah ban so that they don't have to deal with this. This would also mean that Fnatic don't even want the Orianna themselves that badly. They as a team most likely just want to take the draft in a different direction, and they feel like Humanoid might be able to capitalize better without a champion like this. So this is further supplemented by the Poppy pick in R1 and with the Kai'Sa in R2. Nothing too crazy. Poppy priority is like something that's relatively mixed across certain teams, right? As Poppy is a pretty backwards champion, it's mainly going to prevent BLG from picking really high octane, like high mobility champions that are remaining. So this paired with the Kai'Sa is a little bit of a mixed bag, but it's totally okay. There is still a lot of Kai'Sa priority as a result since Xayah is banned. So she's basically quote unquote the last remaining extremely high priority ADC. This is where things get a little bit interesting here, as BLG actually opt for the Rakan plus Tristana. The Tristana mid, the Tristana is normally picked as a split between mid and AD carry, but obviously since it's picked B3 here when Orianna is already shown, is obviously going AD carry here. For those that are not aware, it's a very traditional matchup into the Kai'Sa, in which it's actually pretty Tristana favored. It's just like no one has been really playing it because a lot of forward ADCs haven't, like raw forward ADCs like Tristana and Samiro have not been as favored as much. This basically is supplemented by the fact that Fnatic actually opt for the Akali R3, so they kind of sign up for this chaos, and they're opting into a playstyle that is very high octane. From this point on, we're missing support and top lane, potentially top lane from Fnatic, but also jungle top from BLG. So there's a very good chance that there's going to be a lot of top bans, at least from the side of BLG, since they have to blind their top laner. Things like Jax and Rumble have slipped through the draft already at this point in the draft. So we're gonna have to see what they're going for. Rumble does get deleted, as to be expected, because BLG just wanted to get rid of the best blinds possible on 4 for top, or best blinds possible for Fnatic, just in case they want to shift their resources around, right? Now, technically speaking, because we see Tristana Rakan as the bottom lane for BLG, the rise of the Poppy support, like sort of stock here, goes up quite a bit because it's actually very strong in this matchup. So Fnatic actually have some more options now, just in case they want to go for that. It does, however, kind of take away from what Kai'Sa wants to do, so it's something to consider, and it's still really good in a vacuum with the comp as well, as long as BLG are as long as Fnatic, rather, are putting resources into that bottom side. So see here, with Kai'Sa Alistar locked in, you're going to expect that top is weak side no matter what, and they have top / jungle for 5, meaning that, if this Poppy wanted to go top side, it's very possible, especially with this potential Jax pick here. And then, really nothing special coming out from BLG on 3, right? My main issue with this is that if they're going to pick a champion like Tristana in order to counter something like the Kai'Sa, there's kind of a reason for this, right? It's hard to really pick a champion like this because it has decent weaknesses. It's not strong enough to just pick raw, right? There's comps that can play around it, sort of like what Fnatic has been prepping here, right? It can prevent the engage. It's not just so strong in a vacuum that it has this problem, especially when you're just picking generic junglers like this anyway on these slots, right? This results in Fnatic being able to actually pick the Ivern on 5 and provide some room for Fnatic to kind of deal with what BLG has. The only issue is that I would say Fnatic's comp is a little bit homeless in a couple of ways. The first one being that it's hard for them to really play forward with champions like Kai'Sa Akali when they have to deal with the potential, when they're basically dealing with the engage from BLG themselves, and they have champions like Ivern and Poppy, right? It's a little bit confusing as to what their identity is, and this is going to be their biggest problem here. Their way they play out fights is very mixed in terms of what they're trying to achieve, versus BLG is very clear, right? And because of that, they still have decent matchups across the board as well. So with that being said, both teams are like undoubtedly fairly coordinated, but in terms of actually being able to execute on this, I would say it's pretty hard for Fnatic to kind of get a good grasp as to how they want to play fights, how they want to play around the map and move, and that's why I would say this draft is favored for BLG. Hopefully this makes sense to you all, and I'll catch you in the next one.